WWF Rage in the Cage. I keep forgetting about this one. This was after Super Nintendo Royal Rumble and Raw. It might have came out before Raw, I can't remember. But this was on Sega CD, and I hated that. I never had Sega CD. I had Sega before, but never had Sega CD. So I never played it. I remember the thing it had said, they said like 20, it was like 25 or 30 wrestlers in here. I always wanted to play it though. Wrestling bios.
So here's something a little different today. Rage in the Cage for the Sega CD, or Mega CD as the add-on was known here in the UK. There's no doubt in my mind that viewers of this channel have heard of this game, but I also believe this is one of the lesser known WWF games of this era because it was on the Sega CD. I never owned the add-on as a kid. It was an expensive Mega Drive or Genesis add-on at the time, and honestly I didn't feel like I was missing out on much by not owning one. The Sonic CD game intrigued me a little, but really that was it. That's not to say though that the Sega CD didn't sound good. The compact disc format could hold more storage, meaning we could potentially see games with better visuals, CD quality audio and full motion video. We all know now, in hindsight, that the add-on wasn't the huge success that Sega had hoped it would be, but at the time it sounded like something that had potential. A piece of hardware that could make our Mega Drive systems even better. Yeah, it sounded good. When WWF Rage in the Cage was released for the CD-based add-on, fans would have been excited to play a new wrestling game that uses the Sega CD to its advantage. The back cover here promises to deliver the biggest WWF game roster to date, stereo sound, even live action video, though looking at this back cover, fans would also quickly notice that this game looked incredibly similar to the LJN published wrestling games of the past. As a matter of fact, it looked identical, with the only exceptions being new wrestlers and new steel cage matchups. Remember, WWF Rage in the Cage was kind of a continuation from the previous 16-bit WWF games Super WrestleMania and Royal Rumble. Cage matches had not appeared on those games and Royal Rumble.
Okay, so yeah, it was before Raw, because I think Raw was the last one. I remember WrestleMania for Sega, and the one for Super Nintendo was totally different, because the one for Sega had Ultimate Warrior and the Bulldog and Papa Shango. They wasn't in the other one. And Royal Rumble had Hogan. So, and the Rage in the Cage. Oh, so I thought it was 20 wrestlers, but that's still a lot. Oh, man, I didn't get it. But I think it's good. I wonder how to control it, because you got to have probably the 6-button controller. And then they said Sega CD didn't do that good. Then they turned around and made the 32X. Yeah, Sega I don't know, it was kind of like Atari or something like that. Because remember, I think Atari had like a lot of add-ons, or it was a ColecoVision. You plug this piece on, you could play games from different systems or something like that.
Well, cage matches had not appeared on those games, so this was something new for this series of wrestling games. Of course, WrestleMania Steel Cage Challenge had came out previously for the NES and Sega Master System, but those games weren't really in the same vein as these later 16-bit releases. So the selling points then of WWF Rage in the Cage, released in December of 1993, was the new roster, full motion video, stereo sound and cage matches. You would naturally assume, with all this available storage on a CD, that all the modes and extras found in the previous 16-bit WWF games would make their way over to Rage in the Cage. I mean, why not? It's very much expected from a sequel that is taking advantage of better hardware. Well, that's not the case at all. Let's look at the game here and I'll point out what's missing as we go along. The game starts out with a full motion video, which was promised on the back cover, so yeah, good job. The problem, of course, is the quality of the video. This was always an issue with the Sega CD games. The videos always did look kind of grainy. That being said, some FMV sequences in other games looked better than others. Take Lodestar here, for example, or Star Strike. And Road Avenger also looked pretty good, thanks to being all animated. The Sega CD hardware just couldn't render video very well. It wasn't just an issue with storage media, it just didn't look great. In regards to WWF Rage in the Cage, they didn't even bother trying to add full colour. That being said, this was the very first time that full motion video was included in a WWF game, so credit here where it's due. Just to jump ahead a little, but staying on topic, FMV videos are also used to view a wrestler's finishing move on the character select screen. And we also get a full motion video after completing the tournament mode. So let's jump back a little and look at the game modes, and yeah, this presents a problem. Remember when I said that the expectation here would be everything from past 16-bit WWF games would get carried over? Well, that didn't happen when it came to the game modes and match types. When comparing to the game modes available in past games like Super WrestleMania and Royal Rumble, this is a giant downgrade in my opinion. Tag matches are gone, Royal Rumble matches are gone, Survivor Series matches are gone. What we have here are the bare bones when comparing to past games. You may think this is nitpicking over a game released in late 1993, but
yeah, I didn't think about that. But yeah, so like I said, I never played this. The tag match not even being there. That's know about that. So it didn't miss anything. It looks like didn't miss nothing.
Still expect a sequel of this nature to carry over everything from the past games. The next game in the series, WWF Raw, carried over all the old game modes with the exception
that was the best one.
Matches from Rage.
Yeah, this was the best one. One-on-one, tag, Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, Bedlam. I think that's like a 2-on-2, no disqualification or something. A Raw endurance match, and you had rematch. Raw was the best one. Yep.
Cage, and because this game here is on disc, maybe most of the storage space available was used for the FMV sequences, who knows. But worse still, the roster features tag teams such as the Nasty Boys, Money Inc. and the Head Shrinkers, but you won't be able to use them as tag teams in the game. A real shame here. Anyway, we have singles matches, brawls, which are no-holds-barred matches where you just gotta deplete your opponent's health bar, cage matches, and the single-player tournament. Let's look at the roster then, and things do get better here, thankfully. We have Bret Hart, Tatanka, the Big Boss Man, Nobs, and Sags of the Nasty Boys, the model Rick Martel, Shawn Michaels, Yokozuna, Bam Bam Bigelow, Ted DiBiase, Razor Ramon, Lex Luger, IRS, Fatu and Samu of the Head Shrinkers, Macho Man Randy Savage, Mr. Perfect, Crush, Kamala, and The Undertaker. Now, one of the benefits of CD-based storage is the fact that developers could easily add CD quality audio, meaning theme music should sound great here on the character select screen, right? They did promise us stereo sound, and while the sound is in stereo, the music used is the same chip music heard in the Super Nintendo versions of Royal Rumble and Super WrestleMania. So we don't get official CD quality theme music here. Instead, we get 16-bit renditions played at higher quality. Another missed opportunity here.
Oh yeah, that same music. Okay.
When a match begins, Howard Finkel will announce the superstars, and the wrestlers themselves will also speak a few words before the bell rings.
The following contest is scheduled for one fall, no holds barred. To my left, from the Department of Correction in Powell County, Georgia, weighing 337 pounds, the Big Boss Man.
Listen up, punk. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to take a brutal beating from the big boss man.
This is a nice addition for sure. One of the things Rage in the Cage got right. The announcements do get repetitive, but still, it's something new, and also this was the first time it was done in this manner in a WWF video game. Looking at actual in-game footage here, you will notice that Rage in the Cage has a wider colour palette in comparison to the other 16-bit WWF games that came before it. Things do look a little smoother around the edges also, so the game also has that going for it. There's more detail in colour in the wrestlers' models, as small as these details may be, so in terms of actual in-game visuals, it isn't that bad at all. Remember, this is in comparison to the other WWF games that were released at the time. I'm not saying it's the most beautiful looking game, but it did look better than what we already had. Another bonus is that WWF Rage in the Cage supports the 6-button controller, making the game much more pleasant and easy to play. In terms of gameplay, WWF Rage in the Cage is identical to the previous WWF games. Nothing really more to say. If you've played WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, or even WWF Raw, you'll know exactly what to expect.
I did that the other day, the Super WrestleMania. That was the worst one. Oh, that's another thing. I forgot about that. Super WrestleMania, the Sega version, they had the finishing moves. See what they always, that's because they were in competition back then. And see, Super Nintendo, it was just, the sound was alright, but the Sega always they did something. Like I remember, what was it, NBA Jam and like Street Fighter. They were like more the arcade versions. And like the Super Nintendo version was like the Super Nintendo version. I remember they did little stuff like that. And like the Street Fighter, I remember they had like that what was it called? Special Champion Edition, but they had, the arcade sound. I remember they would do stuff like that because they were competing something serious back then. Talking about Genesis does and Nintendo doesn't, or something like that. It was Nintendo. They were picking bad back then.
The game uses a tug-of-war system when locking up, so whoever button mashes the most will win lockups.
That was frustrating. Till your hands hurt.
Your health is in the red, and you press the appropriate button in the appropriate position. To get a challenge here, do put the difficulty level up. The cage match is pretty simple. Just beat your opponent up, go to the corner, and press A and B together to escape and win the match. And there's no way of jumping off the top of the structure, at least to my knowledge. Tournament mode will have you defeat 19 other superstars in order to see your chosen character's FMV sequence. Going through this mode now is quite the job in itself, not due to the difficulty, but it gets pretty old pretty fast. It would have been nice if cage matches and brawls were included in the tournament, but instead it's just singles match after singles match. Nothing more to say really. The end videos too, as mentioned before, aren't of great quality, so your reward here for sticking it out isn't all that rewarding. You don't get anything at all for completing the tournament mode in terms of unlockable characters or new modes. You watch the little video, question why you just played the game, and you get thrown right back to the main menu.
Damn.
And really, that's it for WWF Rage in the Cage. I don't have anything else to say. I suppose if you enjoyed
He's
the
got nothing.
16-bit WWF games, this is kind of a curiosity that is probably worth checking out, if just for the roster. If you have the choice on which one to play, this would probably be the last WWF game of this era that you would choose, just simply due to the lack of game modes. The boredom factor kicks in really fast here.
Oh, the boredom
things to do. It's telling also that the next game in the series, WWF Raw, was a vastly superior game that didn't need the benefit of being on the Sega CD hardware, confirming here what most people thought of the Sega CD. It was kind of unnecessary. WWF Raw did come out on the Sega 32X, which was another Sega Mega Drive add-on, but we will talk about that another time. So, can I recommend Rage in the Cage? Really? No, I can't. What you've seen in this video here is pretty much everything the game has to offer.
Damn.
That isn't a whole lot. In the end, WWF Rage in the Cage feels more like a step backwards than forwards. And if you're into these kind of old school wrestling games, there are much better options out there.
Damn. Wrestling bios. He's something else. Yeah, well, like you said, looks like he ain't missed nothing. I never forget, I was angry. That mess came out for I was like, ah, damn, Sega. So we hated Sega back then. Because, like some people like WWF and WCW. But the system was different. You either like one or the other. And, it was a Super Nintendo. I played Sega eventually later. But I did like, the original Sega. It was like red and black, and it said something high definition graphics or something like that. But those Sega 2 and Sega 3, I didn't care. But the original Sega, and the original Sega had the headset thing on it and the volume. That was cool. The other thing about Sega, they had actual game cases. On Super Nintendo, we had to get the cardboard box. I think even Master System had cases. But Sega had cases, and they had the little slot for the little booklet. Almost like the DVD cases before DVDs, almost. But damn, like this guy said, the wrestling bio was like, this damn near sucks. Like, I don't know if it's bad as Super WrestleMania, but it ain't that bad. But, it's like, damn, you ain't really, miss anything.